Welcome to our storytelling podcast, where hearts collide and worlds transform. Imagine a rain-soaked alley where Bethany, a poor scavenger with a heart of gold, stumbles upon Maxwell, a wounded stranger in a tattered suit, lost among the trash. What begins as an act of kindness sparks a love that defies wealth, betrayal, and secrets. From humble shacks to corporate towers, their journey weaves compassion, courage, and redemption, proving that true worth lies not in riches, but in the bonds we forge. Will their love survive the shadows of a billionaire's past? Stay tuned to find out. If you love stories that uplift and inspire, hit that subscribe button and share where you're listening from in the comments. Your city might just spark our next tale. Don't miss a moment. Every twist will keep you hooked until the very end. Let's dive into Bethany and Maxwell's unforgettable story. The rain fell in relentless sheets, hammering the cracked pavement of the alley like 1,000 tiny fists. Bethany pedaled her battered bicycle through the deluge, her raven-black hair plastered to her face, her emerald eyes squinting against the sting of the downpour. The rusty cart hitched to her bike rattled with every bump, its wheels groaning under the weight of scavenged treasures, cardboard, bottles, scraps of metal. As a scavenger, she knew these alleys like the lines of her own hands, each dumpster a map of survival. But tonight, the air felt heavy, charged with something she couldn't name. Her worn sneakers squeaked, soaked through as she rounded a corner. The alley was narrow, flanked by overflowing bins and sagging cardboard boxes, their edges dissolving in the rain. A flash of lightning illuminated the scene, and Bethany's breath caught. There, sprawled among torn garbage bags, lay a man. He was impossibly out of place, a figure of elegance and ruin. His blonde hair, matted with grime, clung to a face that might have been carved from marble, sharp cheekbones softened by the flicker of streetlight. His suit, though torn at the sleeve, was unmistakably expensive, the kind of tailored perfection Bethany had only seen in shop windows or discarded in the bins of the wealthy. Blood trickled from a gash on his temple, mingling with the rainwater pooling beneath him. She froze, gripping the handlebars. Her heart thudded, a warning drumbeat. This could be a trap. The alleys weren't kind to the trusting. Drunks, thieves, or worse lurked in shadows like these. She'd learned that lesson young, dodging groping hands and sharp words. Yet, something held her there. Maybe it was the way his chest rose and fell, uneven but alive. Maybe it was the glint of a gold watch on his wrist, a silent plea of vulnerability. Or maybe it was her grandmother's voice, echoing from childhood. Kindness is never wasted, Bethany. It's the only currency that grows. She dismounted, her bike clattering to the ground. The rain stung her skin as she approached, cautious as a deer. "Hey!" she called, her voice barely audible over the storm. No response. Closer now, she saw the pallor of his skin, the faint tremor in his fingers. He wasn't just drunk, he was hurt. The blood from his temple painted a dark trail down his cheek, and his lips parted in a shallow groan. Her mind raced. Leave him, call for help. But who would come? In this forgotten corner of the city, help was a luxury she couldn't afford. Bethany knelt beside him, the wet pavement soaking her knees. "Sir, can you hear me?" She touched his shoulder, first gently, then with more force. A low moan escaped him, but his eyes remained closed. Lightning flashed again, revealing the stark contrast of his refined features against the filth around him. He didn't belong here, not among the refuse she sifted for survival. She glanced around. No one. Just the rain, the distant hum of a neon sign, and the faint wail of a siren too far to matter. Her shack wasn't far, a patchwork of plywood and tarp that barely kept the rain out. Taking him there was madness. What if he were dangerous? A criminal? Her fingers brushed the gold watch, its weight heavy with questions. But then she saw the blood again, thicker now, and her grandmother's words drowned out her fears. "You can't turn away from someone in need, Bethany. That's when you lose yourself." With a resolve she didn't know she had, Bethany hooked her arms under his shoulders. He was heavier than he looked, his frame lean but solid. She grunted, dragging him toward her cart, her sneakers slipping on the slick pavement. The rain battered her back, each drop a reminder of the insanity of her choice. Just until he wakes up, she told herself. Just until the storm passes. Getting him into the cart was a battle. His legs dangled awkwardly, his suit catching on the cart's rusted edge. She shoved bags of recyclables aside, making room among the bottles and cardboard. He mumbled something incoherent, his head lolling to one side. "Hold on," she whispered, more to herself than to him. She mounted her bike, the added weight making the pedals resist. The cart's wheels screeched in protest, but she pushed forward, her thighs burning as she navigated the uneven alley. The journey to her shack felt endless. The rain blurred her vision, and the cart wobbled with every pothole, eliciting soft groans from the man. Her shack loomed ahead, a humble silhouette against the storm. Its plywood walls sagged, the blue tarp roof flapping in the wind. But it was hers, the only place she'd ever called home. She dragged him inside, the door creaking on its hinges. The air was damp, heavy with the scent of wood and candle wax. Her single mattress, a yellowed foam slab scavenged months ago, lay in the corner. With a final heave, she lowered him onto it, his weight sinking into the thin padding. Bethany lit a candle, its flickering light casting shadows across his face. Up close, he was even more striking. High cheekbones, a strong jaw, lips that might smile easily in another life. But the gash on his temple worried her, the blood clotting but still fresh. She grabbed a rag, dampening it with rainwater from a bucket, and gently cleaned the wound. His skin was warm, too warm, and she wondered if fever was setting in. "What am I doing?" she thought, her hands trembling. She was no nurse, no hero, just a scavenger who barely scraped by. As she worked, she noticed details. His nails were manicured, his hands unscarred, unlike her calloused fingers. The suit, though ruined, was silk-lined, its stitching precise. And that watch, engraved with initials she couldn't make out, spoke of a world she'd never touched. Yet here he was, in her shack, as broken as the things she collected. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice barely a breath. He stirred, a faint groan escaping but didn't wake. Bethany sat back, her heart pounding. The candle's flame danced, throwing his features into sharp relief. She should have left him. She should have walked away. But something about him, his vulnerability, his displacement, mirrored the ache she carried. She'd been invisible her whole life, a shadow sorting through the city's refuse. Yet tonight, she'd chosen to be seen, to act, to save. Whether it was a mistake, she didn't know. But as the rain drummed on the tarp above, she felt a shift, a quiet certainty that this stranger, this moment, would change everything. The first rays of dawn crept through the cracks in Bethany's shack, painting slivers of gold across the plywood walls. The storm had passed, leaving a damp stillness that clung to the air. Bethany sat cross-legged on the floor, her back aching from a night spent on the hard ground. Across from her, on the scavenged mattress, the stranger stirred. His blonde hair was disheveled, the gash on his temple now a dark bruise. But his breathing was steadier. She'd stayed awake most of the night, watching him, half expecting him to vanish like a dream or wake as a threat. Neither had happened. His eyes fluttered open, blue as a summer sky, and clouded with confusion. Where am I?" he murmured, wincing as he touched his forehead. His voice was hoarse, refined, with an accent Bethany couldn't place. She leaned forward, her heart quickening. "You're in my home. I found you last night in the alley, passed out in the trash. You were hurt bad." She gestured to the rag, stained with his blood, lying beside the candle stub. He blinked, propping himself up on one elbow, and scanned the shack, the sagging tarp ceiling, the single cracked chair, the bucket catching drips from a leak. His gaze settled on Bethany, her raven black hair tied back, her emerald eyes, wary but kind. "You brought me here?" he asked, disbelief threading his words. She nodded, brushing a stray lock from her face. "Couldn't leave you out there. Rain would have drowned you." He closed his eyes, as if searching for something inside himself, then opened them with a grimace. "I don't remember anything. Not my name, not how I got there. Nothing." His voice cracked, a raw edge of panic surfacing. Bethany's stomach twisted. She'd seen drunks forget their nights. But this was different. His fear was too real, his loss too complete. "Hey, it's okay," she said softly, though she wasn't sure it was. "Maybe it'll come back. For now, you need a name. I'm calling you Marcus. That work?" "Marcus," he repeated, testing the sound. A faint smile tugged at his lips, softening his sharp features. "I like it. And you are—" "Bethany," she said, her cheeks warming under his gaze. "Just Bethany." He nodded, his eyes lingering on her. "Thank you, Bethany, for saving me." The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard, like a breeze through a window long shut. She stood, brushing dust from her worn jeans, and busied herself with a pot of water over a makeshift stove. "You hungry? I've got some bread, maybe some soup." Marcus nodded, easing himself to sit fully, though he winced with every movement. As she prepared a meager meal, she stole glances at him. His torn suit, though filthy, spoke of wealth, and his hands, unscarred, nails clean, betrayed a life far from her own. Yet there was no arrogance in him, only a quiet gratitude that made her shack feel less empty. They ate in silence at first, the bread stale but softened by the thin vegetable soup. The candle's glow flickered between them, casting their shadows on the walls. "So," Marcus ventured, breaking the quiet, "you do this often? Rescue strangers from the trash?" Bethany laughed, a sound that surprised her. "First time. Usually I just collect bottles, cardboard stuff to sell. Keeps me going." Her voice was steady, but she braced for judgment. It never came. Instead, Marcus leaned forward, his eyes curious. "Tell me about it. Your life, this place." She hesitated, then spoke of scavenging since she was a girl, of learning which bins held treasures, of her grandmother's stories that kept her warm when the world was cold. Marcus listened, his attention unbroken, as if her words were the only thing anchoring him. "You're strong," he said when she finished. "Stronger than I feel right now." Bethany shrugged, hiding a flush. "Just surviving. You'd do the same." He shook his head. "I don't know what I'd do. I don't even know who I am." His voice faltered, and she saw the weight of his emptiness. On impulse, she reached across, her hand brushing his. "You're Marcus. That's enough for now." His fingers curled around hers, warm and steady, and for a moment, the shack felt like a world of its own. Over the next few days, Marcus grew stronger, though his memories remained locked away. He insisted on helping, trailing Bethany as she sorted recyclables in the yard outside her shack. His questions were endless. How to spot reusable glass, why some metals fetched more coin, and his enthusiasm disarmed her. "You're not half bad at this," she teased one morning, tossing him a cracked bottle to inspect. He caught it with a grin. "Maybe I was a scavenger before. Whatever happened." His laugh was warm, and Bethany's heart skipped, a dangerous flutter she tried to ignore. Their evenings were spent over simple meals, the candle's light softening the shack's edges. Marcus shared imagined pasts, a sailor, a poet, a runaway prince, each tale more absurd than the last, making Bethany laugh until her sides ached. But beneath the humor, she saw his struggle, the way his eyes darkened when he thought she wasn't looking. One night, as they sat close, the air thick with the scent of rain-soaked wood, he spoke softly. "Bethany, I don't know who I was, but I know I've never felt seen until now. You've given me that." Her throat tightened. She was used to being invisible, a shadow slipping through the city's margins. Yet Marcus saw her, not as a scavenger, but as a woman, a person. "You're not so bad yourself," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. Their hands brushed again, and this time, neither pulled away. The moment stretched, fragile and electric, until a distant clap of thunder broke the spell. Bethany stood, her cheeks burning. "We should sleep. Big day tomorrow." Marcus nodded, but his eyes held hers, a question unspoken. As she lay on the floor, the mattress given to him, she stared at the tarp above, her mind racing. Marcus was a mystery, a man out of place, yet he fit here, in her world in a way that scared her. His gratitude, his warmth, were chipping away at walls she'd built long ago. But what if his memories returned? What if he belonged to a life that would swallow him whole, leaving her behind? Outside, the city hummed, indifferent to the bond forming in the shack. Bethany closed her eyes, her grandmother's words echoing. "Kindness is never wasted." She'd saved Marcus, given him a name, a place to heal. But as sleep claimed her, she wondered if she was saving him, or losing herself to a man who might not stay. The morning sun burned away the last traces of the night's chill, casting a golden haze over the cluttered yard outside Bethany's shack. She stood beside her rusty cart, sorting a pile of glass bottles with practiced precision, her raven black hair tied back in a loose braid. Marcus, now a week into his stay, crouched nearby, examining a cracked jar with the focus of a scholar deciphering an ancient text. His blonde hair caught the light, and his borrowed shirt, too big, scavenged from a neighbor, hung loosely on his lean frame. The gash on his temple had faded to a faint scar, but his memories remained a locked vault, a shadow that lingered behind his easy smile. "You're getting good at this," Bethany called, tossing him another bottle. He caught it deftly, his grin flashing. High praise from the master scavenger herself. She rolled her eyes, but a warmth spread in her chest. Marcus had slipped into her world with an ease that both comforted and unnerved her. His questions, about which plastics sold best, how to spot copper wiring, were relentless. But his enthusiasm was infectious. He didn't flinch at the grime or the labor, and that alone made her shack feel less like a refuge and more like a home. They set out together, Bethany pushing her bike, Marcus walking beside her, the cart rattling behind. The city buzzed around them, vendors hawking fruit, children darting through alleys, the distant clang of machinery. Marcus absorbed it all, his blue eyes bright with curiosity. "This place," he said, gesturing to the narrow streets. "It's alive, isn't it? Messy, but alive." Bethany glanced at him, surprised. "Most people call it dirty. You see something else?" He shrugged, his smile softening. "I see you in it. Tough, but beautiful." Her cheeks flushed and she quickened her pace, focusing on the path ahead. His words, simple yet piercing, stirred something she wasn't ready to name. They reached the restaurant district, where bins brimmed with discarded cardboard and glass. Bethany taught him to sort swiftly, her hands a blur as she separated treasure from trash. Marcus followed her lead, his movements clumsy but earnest. "Like this?" he asked, holding up a wine bottle, its label half torn. She nodded, suppressing a laugh. "Not bad, rookie." As the sun climbed, they worked in rhythm, their banter a steady pulse. Marcus teased her about her meticulous sorting, while she ribbed him for his tendency to overthink every scrap. "You're wasting daylight," she said, nudging his shoulder when he paused to inspect a dented can. He laughed, the sound bright and unguarded, and for a moment, the weight of his missing past seemed to lift. Bethany caught herself watching him, his quick hands, his easy grin, and felt a pang. He fit here, in her world. But how long could that last? By noon, they paused under an ancient oak tree, its branches a canopy against the heat. Bethany unpacked a sparse lunch, 2 tortillas and a small jar of beans, scavenged from a market's discards. They sat on the grass, shoulders brushing, the city's hum fading to a distant murmur. Marcus took a bite, savoring it like a gourmet dish. "This is better than anything I can remember," he said, then chuckled. "Not that I remember much." Bethany smiled, but her heart twisted. His amnesia was a wall between them, a reminder that he might belong to a life she couldn't imagine. Their hands brushed as they reached for the jar, and the air stilled. Marcus's gaze met hers, his blue eyes searching, and before she could think, he leaned in. Their lips met, soft and tentative, a spark igniting in the quiet. The kiss was brief, but electric, a promise unspoken. But Marcus pulled back, his brow furrowing, his hand clutching his temple. "What's wrong?" Bethany asked, her voice tight with worry. He shook his head, eyes distant. A flash, glass walls, men shouting, numbers on a screen. "It's gone now, but..." It felt heavy. Bethany's stomach knotted. She'd seen that look before, the shadow of a past clawing its way back. "Do you want to talk about it?" she offered, though part of her dreaded his answer. He exhaled, forcing a smile. "Not now. Let's just stay here, in this moment." She nodded, squeezing his hand, but the warmth of their kiss felt fragile, like a flame in the wind. "We'll figure it out," she said, echoing her words from days before. Together. They returned to work, but the air had shifted, charged with an unspoken tension. Marcus threw himself into the task, sorting with a fervor that felt like defiance against the fragments haunting him. Bethany watched him, her mind racing. His presence had brought light to her days, but those flashes, glass towers, shouting men, hinted at a world far from her own. What if his memories returned, pulling him away? What if he was someone important, someone who'd see her shack, her life as a footnote? As dusk fell, they headed back, the cart heavier with their haul. Marcus walked closer now, his shoulder brushing hers, and she let herself lean into it, just for a moment. Back at the shack, they ate by candlelight, the flicker casting their shadows in a quiet dance. Marcus spun a tale of being a runaway prince, his voice playful, but his eyes held a question. "What if I'm not who you think?" he asked, half serious. Bethany met his gaze, her heart steady. "You're Marcus." "That's who I know." But as she lay on the floor that night, the mattress still his, sleep eluded her. The city's pulse thrummed through the thin walls, a reminder of the world beyond her shack. Marcus's breathing was even, but she sensed his restlessness, the weight of a past he couldn't grasp. Her grandmother's words echoed, "Kindness is never wasted." She'd given him a name, a place to heal, but now she wondered if she'd given too much, her trust, her heart, to a man whose truth might shatter them both. The night was heavy with the scent of damp wood and candle wax, the shack's tarp roof swaying faintly under a restless breeze. Bethany slept on the floor, her breathing soft, her raven black hair spilling across the worn blanket. Marcus sat on the mattress, his silhouette rigid against the flickering candlelight. Sleep had abandoned him, his mind a battlefield where fragments of memory clashed with the peace he'd found. The kiss under the oak tree, Bethany's warmth, her unwavering trust. They anchored him, yet the flashes from earlier gnawed at his core. Glass towers, shouting men, a suffocating weight. He pressed his palms to his temples, willing the shadows to stay buried, but they surged like a dam breaking. It began as a pulse, a boardroom, sleek and cold, filled with men in suits, their voices sharp with accusation. Then a face, Victor Langston, his business partner, eyes glinting with ambition. "You're reckless, Maxwell. You'll ruin us." The name hit like a thunderclap. Maxwell Vanderbilt, billionaire CEO of Vanderbilt Enterprises. Images cascaded, marble offices, private jets, a life of relentless deals and hollow victories. He saw himself at a gala, champagne in hand, Victor's smile too tight as he offered a drink. The glass had tasted bitter, the room spinning, then darkness. A car, brakes failing, screeching metal and pain, until Bethany's voice pulled him from the void. Maxwell's breath caught, his heart pounding as the truth unfurled. Victor had betrayed him, spiked his drink, and staged the accident to seize control. The gash on his temple, the amnesia. It was no coincidence. He'd survived, but at what cost? He looked at Bethany, her face serene in sleep, and felt a knife twist in his chest. She'd given him a name, a purpose, a glimpse of joy he'd never known. But he wasn't Marcus, the man she trusted. He was Maxwell Vanderbilt, a tycoon whose world was a labyrinth of greed and danger, a place where her light could be snuffed out. He rose, careful not to wake her, and stepped outside. The air was cool, the city's hum a distant pulse. Stars peeked through the clouds, indifferent to the storm in his mind. His life as Maxwell loomed, a company teetering on Victor's schemes, employees depending on his return, contracts demanding his signature. He couldn't abandon it, not when Victor's betrayal threatened everything he'd built. But Bethany, her laughter, her calloused hands, her belief in him, tethered him to this shack, this moment. To stay was to lie, to drag her into a world that would chew her up. To leave was to break her heart, and his own. Maxwell paced the yard, the gravel crunching under his borrowed shoes. The gold watch, still on his wrist, glinted in the moonlight, a relic of his past life. He traced its engraved initials, MV, and felt the weight of his identity settle like chains. He'd been empty as Maxwell, chasing power to fill a void. But with Bethany, he'd found meaning in simplicity. Yet, Victor's treachery demanded justice. If he didn't act, Vanderbilt Enterprises would fall, and Victor might come for him again, or worse, find Bethany. The thought chilled him. She'd saved him, but he couldn't let her pay for it. Dawn crept closer, the sky bruising purple. Maxwell returned to the shack, his decision made, though it tore at him. He found a scrap of paper and a stub of pencil, his hand trembling as he wrote, "Bethany, I have to go. I promise I'll return. You've given me a reason to live. Marcus." The words felt inadequate, a frail vow against the chasm between their worlds. He placed the note beside her, his eyes tracing her face, her strong jaw, the faint freckles across her nose, the peace he was about to shatter. He wanted to wake her, to explain, but words would only bind him tighter. Instead, he leaned down, brushing a kiss against her forehead, so light she didn't stir. He stepped outside, closing the creaking door with care. The city was waking, vendors setting up stalls, the first buses rumbling past. Maxwell shed the borrowed shirt, folding it neatly on a crate, and straightened his torn suit, the only remnant of his past. Each step away from the shack felt like tearing a piece of himself free. He didn't look back, couldn't, knowing her emerald eyes would undo him. The alley stretched before him, leading to a world of glass and steel, where Maxwell Vanderbilt belonged, but Marcus, the man Bethany loved, did not. As he reached the main street, A taxi's headlights cut through the dawn. He flagged it down, the driver eyeing his disheveled suit with suspicion. "Downtown," Maxwell said, his voice steady, though his heart was not. The city blurred past, shacks giving way to towers, poverty to power. He leaned back, the note's words echoing. "I promise I'll return." But could he? Bethany's world was truth and grit. His was lies and ambition. To return meant bridging that divide, a task that seemed impossible as the taxi carried him toward Vanderbilt Enterprises. Unknown to him, Victor Langston sat in Maxwell's office, orchestrating a memorial for a man he believed dead, his plans to seize control nearly complete. Maxwell's return would be a reckoning. But it was Bethany's face that haunted him, her trust a beacon he feared he'd betray. As the city's skyline loomed, he steeled himself. He'd reclaim his empire, expose Victor, and find a way back to her. But in the quiet of the taxi, doubt whispered. What if you're not the man she needs anymore? Maxwell Vanderbilt stepped out of the taxi, the city's pulse thrumming through the dawn-lit streets. The towering glass facade of Vanderbilt Enterprises loomed ahead, a monument to the life he'd reclaimed but no longer recognized. His torn suit hung like a relic, the gold watch on his wrist a ticking reminder of the world he'd left behind and the woman he'd abandoned. Bethany's face haunted him, her note tucked in his pocket like a wound. "I promise I'll return." But 3 months had passed, and each day was a battle to unravel Victor Langston's treachery. Now, standing before his empire, Maxwell felt the weight of his choices, knowing the cost of his absence was about to confront him. Inside, the lobby buzzed with hushed whispers and stunned glances. Employees froze as Maxwell strode past. His presence a ghost returned. He'd stormed the boardroom days after leaving Bethany, shattering Victor's staged memorial. "You can't bury me yet," he'd declared, exposing the forged death certificate and tampered car brakes. Loyal staff provided evidence, a mechanic's report, a bartender's testimony about Victor's suspicious drink order, enough to reinstate Maxwell as CEO. But Victor, with his silver tongue and deep connections, remained vice president, his denials weaving doubt among the board. The fight was far from over. Maxwell's focus, though, wasn't on Victor today. It was on Bethany. He'd tracked her to the junkyard where she sold her scavenged goods, her name a whisper in his dreams. He couldn't erase the memory of her laughter, her calloused hands, the kiss under the oak tree. Leaving her had been a coward's choice, born of fear that his world would taint her. Now, he had to face her, to offer something, anything, to mend the rift. The junkyard's rusted gates appeared ahead, and his heart quickened, a mix of dread and hope. Bethany stood amid piles of scrap, her raven-black hair catching the morning light as she sorted bottles with fierce precision. Her emerald eyes were sharp, but shadows lingered beneath them, a testament to sleepless nights. She'd woken that fateful morning to find Marcus gone, his note a dagger. "I promise I'll return." The words had burned, then faded, replaced by a hollow ache. 3 months later, her routine was unchanged. Scavenge, sell, survive. But her heart bore scars. Then, a week ago, she'd frozen before a shop's TV, Maxwell Vanderbilt's face staring back, a billionaire reborn. The betrayal cut deep. Marcus, her Marcus, was a lie. A rich man slumming it for amusement. She sensed him before she saw him, a prickle on her skin. Turning, she met Maxwell's gaze, his blue eyes raw with something she couldn't name. His suit was pristine now, a stark contrast to the torn vest she'd found him in. The junkyard fell silent, workers pausing to watch the billionaire among the trash. "Bethany," he said, his voice low, urgent. She gripped a bottle, her knuckles white. "What do you want, Mr. Vanderbilt?" The name was a blade, sharp and deliberate. He flinched, but stepped closer. "I owe you everything. I came to offer you a job at Vanderbilt Enterprises, an administrative role, a chance to show what you're capable of." Her laugh was bitter, echoing off the rusted piles. "A job? You think I need your pity?" Maxwell shook his head, his jaw tight. "It's not pity. You're smart, Bethany, stronger than anyone I know. You deserve more than this." He gestured to the junkyard, then caught himself, realizing the insult. Her eyes flashed. "This is my life. You don't get to judge it." "I'm not," he said, softer now. "I'm trying to make things right." Bethany crossed her arms, her pride a shield. "Right? You left without a word. Let me think you were dead or worse. Then I see you on TV, a billionaire playing hero. Was I just a game to you, Marcus?" The name stung, and Maxwell's face crumpled. "It wasn't a game. I lost my memory, Bethany. I didn't know who I was until it came back. Leaving you, it was the hardest thing I've ever done." She wanted to believe him, to see the man who'd shared her tortillas and laughter. But the gulf between them, his wealth, her struggle, was too wide. "I'll take the job," she said at last, her voice cold. "Not because of you, but to prove I'm more than your charity case. This is business, nothing more." Maxwell nodded, his heart sinking. "Understood. Start Monday. I'll send details." She turned away, resuming her sorting, but her hands trembled, betraying the storm within. Monday morning, Bethany arrived at Vanderbilt Enterprises, her simple blouse and skirt a stark contrast to the gleaming lobby. The glass tower felt like another planet, its polished surfaces reflecting her unease. She was led to the 20th floor, where Maxwell waited, his expression guarded. "You'll be handling reports, scheduling. Nothing you can't master," he said, avoiding her gaze. She nodded, her resolve steel. She'd prove her worth, not for him, but for herself. Bethany excelled, her quick mind unraveling complex data with ease. Colleagues sought her advice, marveling at her insight. But Victor Langston watched from the shadows, his ambition festering. He saw Bethany as Maxwell's weakness, a pawn to exploit. Late at night, he tampered with her computer, planting fake emails and stolen documents, framing her for leaking trade secrets. His plan was ruthless: discredit Bethany, destabilize Maxwell, and seize the CEO throne. Whispers spread, suspicions of espionage, doubts about Maxwell's judgment in hiring a scavenger. One morning, security escorted Bethany from her desk, her badge confiscated. "You're dismissed," a guard said, his tone final. The lobby blurred as she stumbled outside, humiliation burning her cheeks. Maxwell was sidelined that same day. The board, citing his reckless decisions. Victor's trap had snapped shut, and Bethany felt the weight of betrayal anew. She stood on the sidewalk, the city's roar mocking her, and clenched her fists. Marcus had promised to return, but Maxwell had brought only pain. Yet, a fire kindled within her. She wouldn't be discarded like trash. Victor had underestimated her, and that was his mistake. Bethany stood on the sidewalk outside Vanderbilt Enterprises, the glass tower looming like a cold sentinel. The sting of her dismissal burned. The guard's words, "You're no longer allowed inside," echoing in her ears. Her simple blouse felt thin against the city's chill, and her raven black hair whipped across her face as she clenched her fists. Victor Langston's sabotage had stripped her of her job and Maxwell of his leadership, leaving them both reeling. The accusation of corporate espionage was a lie, but the evidence, fake emails, stolen documents, had convinced the board. Bethany's pride, forged in the alleys where she scavenged, refused to break. She wasn't trash to be discarded, and Victor would learn that. Back at her shack, the plywood walls offered little comfort. The note from Marcus, "I promise I'll return," lay crumpled on the floor, a relic of trust betrayed. Yet, Maxwell's face from their last meeting, raw with belief in her innocence, lingered. She paced, her emerald eyes blazing. Victor's trap was meticulous, but every trap had a flaw. She needed an ally, someone inside who saw through his facade. Her thoughts turned to Ellen, Victor's secretary, whose hesitant glances during meetings hinted at unease. Bethany found Ellen at a crowded market the next day, her graying hair tucked under a scarf. "I know what Victor's doing," Bethany said, her voice low but firm. Ellen's eyes darted nervously. "You don't understand how dangerous he is." Bethany leaned closer. "I understand he framed me and hurt Maxwell. You've seen things, haven't you?" Ellen hesitated, then nodded, her voice a whisper. "He's been forging documents, planting evidence. I have recordings, meetings where he brags about it, even about the attack on Maxwell." Bethany's heart raced. "Show me." At Ellen's small apartment, the air was thick with tension. Ellen produced a flash drive, her hands trembling. "These are from months ago," she said, playing a file. Victor's voice filled the room, smug and calculated. "Maxwell's out of the way thanks to that spiked drink and a little car trouble. Now we use this Scavenger girl to bury him for good." Another recording detailed his orders to fabricate emails from Bethany's computer, linking her to rival firms. The final clip chilled her. Victor laughing about the tampered brakes, meant to kill Maxwell. "Pity he only lost his memory. Next time, I'll be thorough." Bethany's anger flared, but her mind sharpened. "We take this to the police," she said. Ellen paled. "He has people everywhere. We need to be smart." Bethany nodded, a plan forming. Victor thrived on control. She'd use that against him. "We lure him out, make him think he's won. I'll offer the recordings, but he'll get a fake instead." Ellen's eyes widened. "You're playing with fire." Bethany's smile was steely. "Fire's all I've got." They chose an abandoned warehouse on the city's edge, its rusted machinery a maze of shadows. Bethany sent Victor an anonymous message, hinting at the recordings and demanding a meeting. She copied the real files to a hidden drive, stashing it with a trusted neighbor, and filled a decoy flash drive with dummy audio, market sounds, meaningless chatter. Ellen would alert the police, timing their arrival to catch Victor in the act. The plan was risky, but Bethany's years of scavenging had taught her to navigate danger with precision. At dusk, the warehouse loomed, its broken windows gaping like empty eyes. Bethany's heart pounded as she stepped inside, the decoy drive clutched in her hand. Victor emerged from the shadows, his tailored suit a stark contrast to the decay. His smile was cold, predatory. "You're bolder than I thought, Miss Scavenger." "The recordings?" She held up the drive, her voice steady. "Where's your guarantee I walk out of here?" He laughed, stepping closer. "You don't. But I'm curious. How did nobody like you get this far?" Bethany's eyes narrowed. "You underestimated me. And Maxwell." Victor's smirk faltered. "Maxwell's finished. The board's mine and you're just collateral." He snatched the drive, his confidence blinding him. "You planned it all," she said, baiting him. "The drink, the car, the frame-up. Why?" Victor's ego took the hook. "Maxwell thought he could run the show alone. I built this company too. That night I made sure he'd disappear, permanently. You were just a convenient scapegoat." His confession hung in the air, and Bethany's pulse quickened. She heard a faint creak. Ellen's signal. "You forgot one thing," she said, stepping back. "I'm not alone." The warehouse doors burst open, police flooding in, their shouts slicing through the gloom. "Hands up, Langston!" Victor froze, the decoy drive slipping from his grasp. His eyes darted to Bethany, realization dawning. "You," he spat, but cuffs snapped around his wrists. An officer approached her. "We got it all. The real recordings are safe, and his confession seals it." As Victor was dragged away, snarling threats, Bethany exhaled, her legs trembling. The police had Maxwell's release in motion, his name cleared by the evidence. But victory felt hollow. She'd outsmarted Victor, but Maxwell's world, glass towers, boardroom battles, was a chasm she couldn't cross. She left the warehouse, the city's lights blurring through unshed tears. Her shack awaited, a refuge where Marcus had been hers, not a billionaire she could never reach. Ellen met her outside, relief in her eyes. "You did it, Bethany. You saved him." Bethany nodded, but her heart ached. Saving Maxwell meant losing Marcus, and the job offer, the betrayal, had widened the gulf between them. She'd proven her strength, but at what cost? As she walked home, the city's pulse mocked her, whispering of a love that might never bridge their worlds. Yet deep within, a spark of defiance burned. She'd face Maxwell again, not as a victim, but as an equal, ready to demand answers. The city's dawn broke in hues of amber and gray, casting long shadows over Bethany's shack. She sat on the creaking floor, her raven black hair loose, her emerald eyes fixed on the crumpled note from Marcus. "I promise I'll return." Victor Langston's arrest had freed Maxwell and cleared her name, but the victory felt like ashes. The warehouse trap, her cunning outmaneuvering of Victor, had proven her strength, yet it couldn't bridge the chasm between her world and Maxwell's. The billionaire's glass towers, his wealth, his power, they were a universe apart from her scavenged life. She'd avoided him since, dodging his calls, his visits, her heart a fortress against the pain of his departure. Maxwell, reinstated as CEO, sat in his office, the city skyline sprawling beyond the windows. The boardroom battles were won, Victor's schemes exposed, but success was hollow without Bethany. Her courage had saved him, her intelligence dismantled his enemy, yet she'd slipped away. Her final words: "I'm not your victim." A blade in his chest. He'd left her to protect her, but the truth was cowardice. He'd feared she'd reject the man he was, not the Marcus she'd loved. Now he had to prove he could be both. He acted swiftly, driven by a clarity born of loss. He donated half his fortune to charity, funneling billions into shelters and schools for the city's forgotten. Then, he founded the Bethany Cole Foundation, a beacon for scavengers, offering education and job training. It wasn't charity. It was a vow to level the ground between them. The news spread, headlines screaming of his sacrifice, but Maxwell cared only for her. He needed her to see it, to believe he could change, not for guilt, but for love. Bethany learned of it at the market, a newspaper thrust into her hands by a vendor. Billionaire donates half fortune, names foundation after Scavenger. Her breath caught as she read. "Bethany Cole taught me that worth lies in character, not wealth," Maxwell had said. The foundation's mission, empowering those like her, stirred something deep, a flicker of hope she'd buried. Yet doubt gnawed. Was this another grand gesture? A billionaire's attempt to buy forgiveness? She clutched the paper, torn between anger and longing, and knew she couldn't hide forever. That evening, she returned to her shack. The familiar creak of the door, a small comfort. But there, on the dusty ground outside, sat Maxwell. His suit was rumpled, his blonde hair mussed, his blue eyes shadowed with exhaustion. He rose, his presence filling the space, yet his posture was humble, stripped of arrogance. "Bethany," he said, his voice raw, "I've been waiting. We need to talk." She crossed her arms, her heart pounding. "I'm busy," she lied, her voice sharp. "Say what you came to say." He stepped closer, undeterred. "I'm not leaving until you hear me out." His gaze held hers, steady and unguarded. 3 months ago, I was lost, empty, chasing power to fill a void. Then I woke in your arms, with no memory, and you gave me a name, a life, a reason to feel whole. You showed me joy in a tortilla, strength in a cart of bottles. I was Marcus because of you. Bethany's throat tightened, but she held her ground, her eyes blazing. And then you left, Maxwell. You chose your world over me. He nodded, pain etching his face. I did, and it was the worst mistake of my life. I thought I was protecting you, keeping you from a world that would hurt you. But I was scared. Scared you'd see Maxwell Vanderbilt and walk away. Every day without you was hell, Bethany. I don't want that life if you're not in it. He pulled off his jacket, letting it fall to the dirt, a symbol shed. The foundation, the donation. It's not guilt. It's me trying to make us equals, to build a world where we both fit. Her eyes stung, but she shook her head. You're still a billionaire. I'm still a scavenger. Words don't change that. Maxwell's voice softened, urgent. Then tell me what does. Tell me how to prove I love you, not as a savior, but as a man who sees you, your strength, your heart, your fire. He dropped to one knee, pulling a simple gold ring from his pocket. No diamonds, just truth. Marry me, Bethany. Not despite our differences, but because they make us stronger together. Bethany froze, the ring glinting in the fading light. Neighbors peered from their shacks, whispers rippling, but Maxwell didn't flinch. Get up, she said, her voice trembling. People are watching, he smiled, unwavering. Let them. I want the world to know I'm in love with Bethany Cole. Tears spilled down her cheeks and she laughed, a sound of surrender and hope. She saw Marcus in his eyes, the man who'd sorted bottles, shared her laughter, and Maxwell, who'd given up half his world for her. You're impossible, she whispered. Is that a yes? He pressed, his voice thick with emotion. Yes, she said, barely audible. Yes, I'll marry you. Maxwell surged to his feet, pulling her into a kiss that drowned out the world. Neighbors cheered, their claps a joyful chorus. The kiss was a promise, fierce and forgiving, binding their worlds. Months later, their wedding filled a community hall. Scavengers mingling with executives, Bethany in a modest gown, Maxwell in a plain suit. Their vows echoed equality, love, and respect, a testament to a bond forged in trust. 2 years on, they ran the Bethany Cole Foundation, their office lined with letters from families transformed. 600 trained, 250 employed, 80 businesses launched. Over tacos, Maxwell grinned. You taught me what matters. Bethany leaned into him, her heart full. And you showed me love bridges any gap. Their story, born in a rainy alley, proved that courage and compassion could unite even the farthest worlds. Thank you for joining us on this heartfelt journey with Bethany and Maxwell, a story of love that conquered impossible divides. What did you think of their tale? Did their courage and compassion inspire you? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let us know where you're listening from. Your city might spark our next story. We're so grateful for your time and passion for these tales. If you loved this episode, hit that subscribe button to catch every new adventure. Until next time, keep finding beauty in the everyday, and we'll meet again soon with another story to warm your heart. Stay inspired.